you don't stop learning when it comes to butchering. There's so many different aspects to it, and now butcher shops are evolving. So if you're into food and you want to be a chef, you can still cook and you can still produce those products in a butcher shop as well. It's only been good to me. I can't fault it.
This is The Crackling. I'm Anthony Huckstep. A career in food is alluring for many. Some find their place on the tools and learning the art and craft of butchery, and there are some, like Luke Leyson, that hone those skills and take on the world. Luke, how are you?
Good, thank you, mate. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to get you on the show. You are a busy man. You're not only a full-time butcher, but you're captain of the Australian butcher team as well. Like, how do you go from working at a butcher to taking on the world?
Yeah, it was, I guess, a very extensive question. Back when I first got into competition butchering, it was just a Facebook post from the Australian team, the Steelers back then, and just looking for extra hands to go over and take on the world. So, I guess through application process and a Trans-Tasman test match, I found my way into the team, and we won that test match, by the way, if there's any New Zealanders listeners out there. But and then I guess I want to say I Stephen Bradbury the captaincy, because unfortunately the Steelers had to. I guess a lot of the people pulled out through COVID, and the team kind of diminished, and then this new Australian butchering team came to life, and I was one of the last man standing. So,
It sounds a bit like you should have a baggy green with these test matches. Can you give us an idea of sort of what's involved in the sort of world titles?
So when we do the World Butchers Challenge, it's an event every 3 years now. They've put it out an extra year just because it is so big and so long to kind of get organised with. It is 3 hours and 15 minutes for a team of 6 to break down a side of beef, a side of pork, a whole lamb, and 5 chickens, and essentially just display it in any means necessary, as elaborate as you like. Value-added products, cooked products, sausages, burgers, basically what we think is going to be the future of products you'll see in a butcher shop. It's very big, it's very elaborate. They do dub it the Olympics of meat.
Well, obviously, this is a pork podcast and we're talking pork. Tell us about what you did sort of with pork on the world stage, with that sort of mindset that you had.
So, especially with the first World Butcher Challenge that I took part in, which was in Ireland 2018, I broke down the pork. And essentially from there, my role was to value add products from the pork, but also to trim to spec to other teammates who were going to use the pork as well. So basically, utilizing the whole thing is a must. If you've got meat left over at the end of the competition, there's no chance you're going to win it. That's a big one. But then I guess fast forwarding into the Sacramento, California World Butcher Challenge that we just competed in. My good friends Craig and Brett, they took care of the whole pork, and I don't know if you've had Brett Laws on the show, and just to see some of the products that he makes, it's just blows my mind. And I've been, we've all been butchering for so long, but then some of the things that he comes out with is just out of this world.
These days, you're in South Australia at Goodwood Quality Meats. Tell us a little bit about the operation there and what you guys do.
So we're just I'd say like a neighbourhood butcher shop. We're still on the main street. We've got the old school cold plate window at the front still. It's been there since 1963, which is I thought was old. And then I caught up with an English butcher just the other week, and his shop's from like the 1903 or something ridiculous like that. So kind of took me down a peg, but 1963 still old, still an institute. The Goodwood, the area is a very eclectic area. Like, people are very arty. They like their food. They like to come in with a recipe, buy, I guess, the cut as it is, and take home and then create it. That's not to say we don't create anything of our own in store. But I guess as Sydney butchers, Melbourne, very, very value adding, very oven ready, for the time poor, but we, I guess, move our value adding into small goods and dry curing and charcuterie. So which is very good for pork because we kind of use the whole thing and nothing goes to waste, and there's just so much you can do with the side of pork. So I guess with South Australia as well, we're a bit more of a German background in our butchering and our small goods making. So we go into, the Kranskis are probably the more, normal one that people would think of when they think of German small goods. But we delve into Black Forest ham, which is dry cured, leg of pork, much like a prosciutto, but boneless and doesn't take 12 months to 2 years to make. Nuschinkens, we make a German style black pudding, which is absolutely delightful. Like I wasn't really big on black pudding as an English one because I thought it was very harsh for me. But the German ones it's got a bit of cinnamon, allspice, cloves. It's a bit sweeter in a sense. Um, but yeah, just really, really focusing on those products and putting them out to the masses, which is always a real enjoyment for I guess the customers when they come in and we can slice these products and just kind of feed them while we serve them. It's always a bit of a show.
There's a real sort of art and craft to charcuterie. Is there sort of one product that really stands out for you that you could take us through the process of how to make it?
Well, I guess I could probably go through the black pudding recipe because that one's taken me a while to master. It absolutely defeated me the first few times. Like when I say it's a bloody mess, like that is a correct terminology. Like it was just everywhere. So I first got a recipe just from my friend that's the English butcher with no real method to be able to do it. So I kind of just chucked all the ingredients together and just like I would a sausage, mixed it up and try to pump it through our sausage filler. And yeah, it was just everywhere. But now we've kind of got a gentleman here who he's a Dutch small goods maker. He's 60 odd, but he probably looks about 45. He's doing very well for himself, and he's been kind enough to I guess teach us some of his grandfather's recipes. So this is where we've pulled this from. So I guess it's there's a lot of parts and processes to get started. Like there's you've got to blanch the back fat, you've got to cook. We get pig heads in and cook them down and pull the meat off of it, mince that up, make a head cheese. You got to sauce the blood, weigh up all the spices, and then I guess once you start making your black pudding, you can't stop because it is very temperamental. You need to have heat the blood up. It can't be too hot, otherwise it won't blend with the head cheese. You can't have it too cold, otherwise it's not going to fill out properly. Got to add bits and pieces step by step in the correct order. Otherwise, the texture towards the end is not going to help you fill it out. Which is, filling it out again is a different kettle of fish. Trying to make them, we've got an auto linker and auto filler, which for anyone who doesn't know is a godsend in the sausage making construction because it basically portions out to the gram. But because it's more of a liquid and it's kind of a different texture, it doesn't really work too well with it. So then I do have to go back to the hydraulic filler and go back to testing my skills at it as an actual sausage maker, I guess.
Well, I want to explore sort of what you're doing there and delve into the world of pork and the different cuts and stuff like that shortly. But take us back to when you were young. What sort of role did food play in your life growing up?
I was actually talking to my partner about this the other day. My partner's Greek, so for her, food has been massive and it's been good food. But I guess like no disrespect to my parents because they would definitely they put food on the table, they fed us, they kept us healthy, they kept a roof. But my mum is a terrible cook, and she knows it. She once bought a barbecue chicken from the supermarket and managed to burn it somehow by reheating it. So, and my father did most of the cooking, but I wouldn't say that there was any. I think the best thing he ever did was a deep fried ice cream. But the worst thing, and I know I'm supposed to be pumping up pork here, but the worst thing he cooked. No, it's not that he cooked it bad. It's just I ate it so many times. I don't think I can eat it again. Is the humble ham steak. just fried with chips. I think my dad used to have pineapple, and I used to just cover it with tomato sauce to get it down. And what was worse, there always used to be MASH on TV. You know the that old yeah. So I think like a recurring nightmare for me is a ham steak with the MASH theme song in the background. But I guess that's made me appreciate food now. I know what I know what it could be, and I know what bland food. Sorry, Dad. Sorry, Mum. But tastes like. But now I try everything. If I don't like it the first time, I'll definitely try it again and again until I can make up my mind and say, yep, that's not for me. But yeah, I do appreciate good food now, and going out to to good restaurants, or even good home cooked food from my Greek in-laws.
Tell us about the moment that you sort of started to think about, a career as a butcher. Was, what led to that?
I think it definitely was like I wanted to be a chef outside of high school. I didn't really know. I knew I wasn't like academically that great. My best subjects in school were PE and hospitality, and I think the teacher I had at the time kind of made hospitality fun, and just the idea of being able to. I got in trouble a few times because I'd ordered too many elaborate ingredients to cook with, prawns. I've spent a lot of money on prawns one day and got in trouble. But yeah, just being able to cook at school, and I guess as well, like I was probably, if not the only or one of two males in the class. So as a young teenage boy, was getting a bit of attention from other girls in the class and wanted to be my partner in the I guess the cooking element of the class. So, I mean, that kind of gives you a little bit of a head wobble when you're like a 14-year old guy at high school. But I just basically my dad walked past a butcher shop and saw that they were after a cleaner, so he basically stuck my hand up for me. I was 13 and a half, and once I started there, I got offered an apprenticeship a bit later on in I think I was about 16, and I held back because I wanted to finish at least year 11. Then started the apprenticeship at 17, and still to that point thought this would be a great stepping stone to be a chef. I can get this done, and it will give me that competitive edge. But then I just really started enjoying butchering, and then butchering hours is long, but split shifts looked worse for me as a chef, so I thought I'd stick to the retail hours.
In those early years when you started to learn your craft, and started to get interested in being a butcher as a career, how did it make you feel being in the kitchen and on the tools?
Yeah, I just remember going into the shop every day, and I remember the smell of a butcher shop, because I wasn't really used to it. It wasn't like I went to butcher shops every Saturday and bought my own meat, but I just remember the smell and I don't know, just the constant work, and you're constantly busy. I think I enjoy being on my feet and doing stuff with my hands. And yeah, it's just a good atmosphere, and I had good people around me when I first started, so they kind of made it. It wasn't so much. I wasn't so much in love with the craft as soon as I started, but I think I was just in love with the idea of being at work and earning money, and yeah, just the hustle and bustle of the whole retail shop vibe.
Early on in your career, was there anyone that was sort of really important as a mentor that sort of helped you carve a path as a butcher?
Yeah, so basically the gentleman that I guess was my manager when I first cleaned up a butcher shop was Dave Armstrong, and he's the one that offered me the apprenticeship, and I still work for him now. But other than that as well, like my papa and my dad are both very hard workers. Nothing to do with the meat industry or food industry, but it did take, I guess, a leaf out of their book to, I guess that was my work drive, and to push me further like that. But so Dave Armstrong, he's great in the sense of he's always pushing to make yourself better. So if we want to do courses, we do cooking courses when we first started, or now small goods, leadership courses. He's very happy to make the shop work around, having that little bit extra time off so you can go better yourself. And, when I do all these competitions, it's obviously a bit of a strain on the shop, having to leave, but it's just never a problem.
Do you remember the first time that you broke down a whole pig and what the experience was like?
Yeah, well, I guess as a butcher, or as for me especially, like it takes me a few times. I got to do it over and over again to get it embedded into my skull. So I think the first time it was we didn't ever break down too much. I think we maybe done 2 or 3 sides a week. So for an apprentice to try to get hold of one of those sides, so you can do it and then do it once a week or maybe once every 2 weeks. I was yeah, it would take me a bit to get my head around, but I remember it was always hanging. We would take the forequarter off first, and it seems weird to think now that I would have looked really awkward and unco trying to take this forequarter off, because basically you put the knife through between the ribs, get to the bone, and then use the saw, but it's only hanging maybe, I don't know, 15 centimeters off the ground. So you've got to use a butcher's hook to hold it. So when you do cut it and it drops a little bit, your left hand or your right hand, whichever preference it is, to make sure it doesn't hit the ground. But I can just, it probably would have looked like a really awkward formal dance, like trying to grapple this side of pork and just try to get it off onto the bench unscathed. And I probably didn't do the cleanest job of getting through the joints or that, but I can safely say now I've got better at it.
Well, when did you start to sort of get the confidence? You know, you've entered competitions and things like that, but when did you sort of find your feet on the tools and feel like, you know, you're in your element?
That's the thing with butchering as well. Like you finish your apprenticeship maybe 3 or 4 years, whatever it is, in some different states, but you don't really learn the craft until, like, I still didn't feel comfortable doing certain things 4 or 5 years after, because it's, again, I have to do it multiple times to get it into my head. But I don't think I ever get to a point where I was like, yep, I'm 100% confident in what I do now, and I'm gonna join the Australian team and be the captain. Like, I don't think there was a point. I just, as I said, I just saw that post and I thought, well, what's the worst they can do? They can just say no. And a bit of imposter syndrome as well. Like, going into the team for the first time, the other team members had already done it for 2 or 3 times. So I looked up to them in ultimate awe, and thinking I'm not good enough for this, and at points I probably wasn't good enough because I'd never experienced that side of it before. But I don't know. I think once, I'm going to sound older here, even though I'm not too old, but especially in the butchering category. But you just kind of, I don't know. You just don't really, like, you care what your peers think, but then you can pick which peers' comments can kind of affect you. Like, everyone's going to have a problem with someone at some point, or you're not going to make everyone happy, which I thought growing up you probably could. But I don't know. You just, I guess, you get your confidence from the people that you can take that kind of advice from, and criticism, and then just don't worry about the rest.
South Australia is renowned for incredible produce. Do you have any stories of connections with pig farmers through your career?
That's a very embarrassing story for me, because I have yet to gone out to a piggery, and it is my New Year's resolution. Yeah, and being part of Australian Pork and all the work that we kind of do with them and do together. I've just recently had a formal invitation from a pig farmer here to come out to one. So I had two New Year's resolutions. One was to go out and do like a home kill with my mate. So I've done that to see that side of it. And the next one is to visit a piggery. So yeah, it is embarrassing to say, but it's on the to-do list.
Well, it's most people on the planet haven't done it, so don't beat yourself up too bad. But
Thanks, mate.
tell us about your other mission for the year. You said you did that. What was that experience like?
It was a little bit confronting for me, especially, like, butchering has definitely changed in the way where, I guess, you used to be stuck into the four walls of your shop, and it was very hard to get out there and to get inspired. But now there's so many different things that you can do. I don't know, just to kind of breathes a bit of fresh air into you, and makes you come back to the shop a bit with a bit of a spring in your step. But yeah, it was definitely, I'm not great with blood. I know that's a weird thing to say as a butcher. Like, basically like, if I cut myself, I got to sit down because all the color will drain from my head. Yeah, I got to have a bit of a breather. I've got better. I've got heaps better, but still not great. So the thought of the home kill job, I was, at the start, we basically in the back of a truck, cutting up, the beast that he'd processed the week prior, which is really nice because you're out in fresh air and different sceneries, and you're cutting up produce with a nice backdrop. And then it was the second half of the day that I think I went a little bit quiet, and I thought, no, you just got to get through it. I said I didn't do the processing or the harvesting myself. I thought I'd just watch this one and see how I go. And I got through it, and it was an experience, and I didn't faint or anything. I was stood strong. But next time I go out, I might try my luck at maybe skinning, or just the extra step, baby steps for me.
Butchers have always been great hubs of the community, and there's often the recommendations from a butcher on different cuts and sort of what's available. It's sort of cuts that are quite popular of the pig, and maybe some that aren't. And how do you sort of usher people into sort of using those underutilized or secondary parts?
Well, I think straight up with I guess your local butcher shop, you kind of create that relationship with customers, so you can get a gauge on what they do and don't like, or what they haven't tried before. And I guess if you give them recommendations, through their whole experience coming through to the butcher shop, they'll trust you if you do maybe put out something that might be a little bit obscure for them, or something different at least. With all the cooking tips we can give, and experiences with our own cooking. Yeah, I guess you just got to gain the trust of the customer to them, and they might come back and just say, "No, that's not for me," or "I totally buggered it up." But that's the whole experience. And one thing that's probably over my career that I've seen go absolutely nuts is pork ribs, and that's purely because the American low and slow scene. But yeah, I remember as an apprentice, you would bone really heavy on the ribs, so there was no meat on them, basically, because no one really wanted to buy them. And now we're boning out for bacon sides, but we're leaving as much meat as we can on the ribs, because it's a better eating quality, but there's also better money in it for us as butchers.
It's fascinating that sort of connection that butchers have with their clients, and that trust that is built. And often there's a cooking method that might be shared as well. How important is being able to cook for your role?
Yeah, it's very important. And I guess when I first started, I kind of thought I had to know everything. But as long as there's someone in the shop that knows a bit about it, and it's just guidelines really, like we could handball to another butcher in the shop, or another salesperson, and just to make sure that we can kind of give them guidance. I don't think you need to know, step 1 to 14, and because the customer's not going to remember that when they get home. You just need to give them a few tips and tricks to get through it, and just to not absolutely bugger it up. But I guess pork crackling has been the biggest one, when no one is very comfortable cooking it, but there is a million and one ways to, like, we always used to give tips and tricks, and I'm not sure which ones work better than others. I think we need to do a full scientific experiment over it. But like boiling hot water over the skin to kind of dry it out, and then you're getting a hair dryer on it. I've heard lemon juice while you're cooking it to heat it up. Putting it in the fridge. I normally just have it in the fridge uncovered for as many days as you can get away with putting salt on it and then replacing it and putting more salt on it. But that was always a funny one for me, listening to every butcher's tips and tricks for pork crackling, because it just seemed like everyone had their own home remedy on how to get it done.
Yeah, and I think amongst chefs, it's the same thing. They've all got their own little sort of techniques that kind of work, and everyone's got different ovens as well that work differently. Is there any sort of cut that stands out for you in regards to cooking that you like to cook, and can you tell us how you do it?
I guess I do like it's a bit of not a bone of contention, but we're trying to put a name to it now. So it's basically a tomahawk, but it's a pork tomahawk. So whether it be a tomahawk or a porkahawk, or I put it out on my socials to see what people, and there was some absolute doozies that came back. But I mean, just to have like the nice leanness of the eye, the whole belly there as well, and some crackling. It's kind of got the three of the best bits of the pork. So and I find it's easy to cook. Like it doesn't take too long. It's a bit of a showstopper. and yeah, it's a little bit different.
I'm quite fascinated about these world titles that we sort of talked about at the beginning of the show. Take us on a journey of it. What's it like, being part of that team? What happens, and what's the build up, and how do you decide on who's doing what?
Yeah, it's a great atmosphere to be in. Part of the Australian butchering team. I guess we were very rushed into the last competition. We had about 5 months to prepare rather than 2 years how you'd normally get. So it was a very big whirlwind of experiences, and just thank you to all our amazing sponsors that got us over there, because without leading hands in the industry to help us get over there, it's not going to happen. And we've got team managers and just people that give up their free time to organise flights, accommodation, practices, produce. We had a meeting every week leading up to it just to make sure we were on top of it. But it is it's a great experience and a great community to be in. Like, now that the competition is done, we're moving on to the next one, which has just been announced. It's in Paris in 2025. And we got a bit more time for this one, but it's still, even though the competition is a couple of years away, like, we're still bounce ideas off of the butchers that we're in the team with, or the young butchers and the apprentices. Like, we're all you make mates and great connections. So it's definitely not just for the competition, but it's for the time period after, and going forward as well. Like, I've made some really great mates out of going into the team, and mentors, and just keep learning from them as well.
For someone that's making quite an incredible career out of butchery, what advice would you have for young people that might want to look into it as a career?
Well, that's I don't think being on a construction site shoveling dirt in a 35-degree day is not fun. I just, if you enjoy it, that's like, congratulations. But for me, being out, and I'm like, I've got quite fair skin and got a bit of ginger hair, so the sun wouldn't be kind to me out in those circumstances. So being a butcher, it's very rewarding, and I mean, if you're creative, it's a very creative job as well. It's not just slicing a steak and chucking it on a tray. Like, there's displaying, there's customer interaction, there's product development. There's all these, like, you don't stop learning when it comes to butchering. There's so many different aspects to it, and now butcher shops are evolving. So if you're into food and you want to be a chef, you can still cook and you can still produce those products in a butcher shop as well. But it's only been good to me. I can't fault it. There's people always got to eat, so you're always going to have a job. As long as you're a decent worker and a good butcher, you always find work wherever you go. The opportunities to travel overseas and to work in butcher shops, in especially with the World Butchers Challenge, there's such a community there now. You could message someone on Instagram from Germany, and they'll put you in the right direction to go work in a shop over there. And like, working holidays have just never been so easy, and you could probably make good, better money than, and better shifts and that kind of stuff while traveling. So, I think, with the ideal, or the idea of what a butcher is or is changed dramatically over the past 5 to 10 years. And I think it's it's a great industry, and like, if you're passionate about it, you can, the world is your oyster, or your world is your pork oyster.
You mentioned the German team there, and sort of being able to text people and the different friendships that you form. Are there any sort of rivalries in these sort of world titles, and sort of like we have in sports?
There is, but there also isn't. So I remember when I first started in the team, it was a very tense kind of, we wouldn't speak to the New Zealand team because, we wouldn't want them to get, any of our secrets, or, or like the English team, we wouldn't speak to them because we weren't allowed to and stuff. But now with the Australian butchering team, like the new era of it, it is, you want to go there and win, but it's also very nice to watch your friends from other countries do well. So there is competitive edge, but it's at no way there's no animosity between teams. And I'm only speaking from an Australian point of view. And I think for us in many codes of sport, we don't have that deep hatred for any other, country or culture because we're quite new to it. But in saying that, if there's 12 teams in the competition and we were to come 11th, that's okay as long as the New Zealanders come last. So they're like your brother. You want them to do well, but not as well as yourself.
Well, Luke, it's an absolute honour to have you on the Crackling today to hear a part of your story. Good luck with the Worlds again in the next couple of years, and keep in touch, and we'll catch up again soon.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for having me, Matt. I really appreciate it.
This is The Crackling, a Deep in the Weeds production in partnership with PorkStar. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we catch up with some of Australia's best chefs and pork producers to discover what makes Australian pork so special.